morning. Welcome to our beginning of our new season, Financially Speaking. I'm your host, Drexwell Seymour. It's glad to be here. We had quite a long break, but anyway, we needed that break, and I'm glad to be back in your presence, and I hope you tune in. Sorry for the late start, but we had some technical difficulties, not my fault. We had some technical difficulties. So with that said, as I mentioned on the flyer, our guest is the Honorable E.J. Saunders, and I think it's important for us to talk about this because this is becoming a household issue with the utility bills, especially in the summer months. And so I think it's important for us to clear the air, get a better understanding and appreciation, and for us also to make a conscious decision on what we want to do in controlling our electricity costs as well. And with that said, I want to welcome Honorable E.J. Saunders, who used to be, of course, the co-host for Financially Speaking. With that said, I want to welcome you to the show again.
Thank you.
You're our first guest for the season.
Thank you. And I'd like to say, before we say anything, thank you for having me on the show. And I think this is the first show that we're doing from the new studios. As I've told everyone, I've done 2 public updates from the studio. This gives the team a good chance to be able to work out the kinks before we go live with daily news. And so I hope that you're seeing that we are able to work through any issues that pop up. The idea is to do these shows, these live runs, these live demos sort of things where we can work through the issues, that there will be invariably issues will pop up, and that we can get through those issues, see what worked well, what didn't work well. Right now, I'm not sure what the audience is seeing, but I do know that there's a green screen behind us, so you should be seeing an image behind that green screen. So hopefully it all goes well and look all seamless. And then these are the sorts of things we're working towards, building a modern studio and adding the pieces to be able to do the same as any news studio or any TV sitcom studio in the United States. That's what we're working towards. So I think this is, Financially Speaking, first show from
in the studio.
So we hope it goes well.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't, we'll keep working on to make sure that your show looks very, very good and match the quality of content.
Sounds good. And speaking, before we started, you mentioned something about daily live shows.
Daily live news.
Daily live news. When can we expect when can that expect to commence?
I mean, we no later than September. We're
That's
working,
next month, you know.
I mean, well, we're working towards getting it ready for this month. So the first time we did a live test run with this, I was in the spot where we would do the news from. The second time, I was in the spot where we would do like speeches from a podium from, and now where we would be if we were doing a talk show. And so we're moving around. So as you can see, we think that we're just getting it just right. There's some issues sometimes with the lighting, and so we have to make some adjustments, camera placements, and everything. But we're just about there. I mean, we have at least 90% of the equipment, and we think we can get started. We can get started pretty soon.
That is awesome. So tell us your portfolio again. You're the Minister of?
Well, I'm the Minister of Technology. So that would be what people used to call the Computer Unit, DETI, and now it's DICE, CGIS. They're mainly responsible for government printing, the Gazette. We are responsible for water undertaking, utility, and we also going to be looking at setting up TCI Finance as a statutory body.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So and a radio Turks and Caicos, of course.
Yes.
I was thinking it was the fourth, but radio Turks and Caicos.
Yes.
So that's digital and innovation, radio Turks and Caicos, CGIS, energy regulator, and the water undertaking.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, let's get straight to our show, and the first thing we want to talk about are the utility bills.
Yes.
Now, someone forwarded me something yesterday or 2 days ago. Of course, I don't go on those sites. I don't go on Free to Speak or Original Speak in Mind. I don't go on that. But someone forwarded me something, and it showed you during the campaign stating that you're going to lower the bills. Did you see that? Did you happen to see that?
No, I've seen it.
You've seen that?
That if we were elected, we would certainly work towards getting the bills.
Okay, all right. So, of course, this month, I think, now one thing I could say, despite what people are saying, we will notify in advance that the bills could be, the fuel factor could be as high as 30 cents,
Yeah,
31
31
cents.
cents, we're saying.
And this time we got a bill is 30.8
Cents, yeah.
cents, right? But before we go there, can you just say something about that video you saw and explain to people what you meant? Because basically what they're implying is that you tricked them, that you told them you make sure they don't be getting any more bills, now they're getting high bills.
Well, the thing about it is that, first of all, I'll say this: the opposition is doing what the opposition is supposed to do. Okay, so keep heat on the government, and so they basically taken the video and say, well, EJ says that we're going to lower rates, and that's our. And I'm still confident that we're going to lower the rates. I became minister in February 2025, and energy was put under me. And one of the first things, and during that time, Saunders at that time had in an application to raise the base rate. Because you know there's two different rates. There's the base
which is
rate,
27.5 cents.
Yes.
Right.
So they had made an application to raise the base rate by 6%. Now that application was made since I think 2024 when Honorable Knowles was minister, and the government declined it. And all of, let me say this, Saunders at the time, but Saunders even in the past, every time they made a rate application for an increase, the government of the day rejected it. Under the Charlene Cartwright administration, she rejected it. It went to an independent evaluator, trader, and they ruled that it should have been, that it was allowed, they should be allowed to do it. They raised it by 6.8%. In 2024, Saunders made another application. When Saunders made the application, like I said, the government rejected it. They were applying to have it been independently reviewed again. Pelican bought Saunders. They kept that application in place. One of the things we did, and I convinced them that they should withdraw that. Okay.
So you're saying that you was able. So you should get. You're basically saying
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that credit. Whether it's me personally get the credit, whether the government.
But the government was able to persuade Saunders not to proceed with the application.
Not to proceed with it. That's why they withdrew it. They didn't just wake up one morning and voluntarily withdraw.
Okay.
Okay. Now, the reason why we did that is because I've always said to Pelican. Pelican had an event in South Caicos when they, just a few weeks ago at Solterra, when they unveiled one of their largest solar, well, I would say solar farms, but it was on top of Solterra. And I said it then, I said it again then. And I've said it a few times. I said, I'm not the minister of renewable energy. I'm the minister of lower cost. And so the reason why I brought up the fact is that we were able to get them to withdraw the application for the 6%, because our goal is to now start to drive down the base rate. So we didn't want it to go high and then have to negotiate it down. Our goal is to negotiate it down. And I'm saying to the public, we are quite aware that Turks and Caicos rates are one of the highest in the world. So the first thing first was that, and Pelican would admit it, it took a lot of persuading for them to withdraw it, because they didn't put it in play, made the application. Saunders made the application. But if they could get 6% higher, why wouldn't they get 6% higher? And I put a lot of pressure on them to withdraw it, because you don't know what would happen if you go to an independent evaluator, arbitrator. If the independent arbitrator had seen it and they may say, yes, it's justifiable, they would have gotten it. So we didn't want to go with that. And I convinced them, that they should withdraw it, and they withdrew it. So the base rate wasn't able to go up, didn't go up any higher. And now our goal is to negotiate down the rates. Now, what happened during that time? During that time, in February of this year, all of a sudden we woke up one morning and the United States was bombing Iran. And then the Strait of Hormuz became an issue about fuel, and fuel prices went up. So fuel prices shot up. And that caused the fuel factor to go up, and why we're getting to one of the highest rates where we are today. But that doesn't change our goal and our objective and my confidence that we will get rates down by the time but we're going to get rates down. I think we're going to get it down pretty soon. And when I say soon, I don't mean a few months, but maybe within a year, 2 years, we will be having lower rates.
Okay, so what do you think it will take then for the rates to go down? Is it the type of is the type of system they're using, the fuel? What will it take for the rates to go down?
Well, because there's two rates.
Yeah, you got the fuel factor and you got the kilowatts
and the base rate.
The base rate.
And together they what we'll call an effective rate, the combined rate or whatever. And so you have to work on both of them. I think if you have the easiest thing to do is have a lower base rate, and the base rate takes into consideration their return on investment, their cost of operating, and everything. Okay, so but the one that jumps wildly is the fuel factor. I went all the way back to 2016 up to now, with all the bills I could find, and at some point I think it was around 2018 or whatever.
So this is the highest it's been so far.
This is the highest, but at one point during that time, it was 4 cents. Today it's 31 cents. It was low. It was as low
in 2016.
Not in 2016. I'm saying between 2016 and now.
Oh, at one point the fuel factor was 4 cents.
And in between 2016 and 2021, the highest the fuel factor was 17 cents. But at one point during that time, I think it might have been during COVID, it was 4 cents. Today it's 30 cents. So that's the one that swings very, very wildly.
Yeah.
Because it's the cost of fuel.
Yeah.
And because we don't have any oil, and we're an oil-dependent economy, and the generation of our electricity is primarily by oil. The easiest way to do it is to try to move away from oil, And so so that's where we talk about renewable energy.
Got it.
And because solar will work best in Turks and Caicos.
Yeah.
We don't have the conditions for at least onshore wind. Yeah. Now, what you want to do is that you want to move and make renewable energy a higher percentage of your production, of energy production. Right now, it's about almost 95% done by diesel generation. We want to get that down to 60, then to 50, then to 40, and then possibly completely eliminate it.
And that will contribute to a lower rate.
It will contribute to a lower combined rate.
Got it.
So I don't want to come back in. People go, he said he was going to get a lower rate, but the base rate is higher, but the fuel factor is low, and he still didn't achieve
overall,
the combined rate. I'm
confident
confident that the combined rate will be negotiated down. That's the goal. That's always been the goal. That we want to get to one of the lowest electricity rate in the region. Now we won't get to the lowest because places like Trinidad have oil, and they can get oil far much cheaper. But our goal is to get down to one of the lowest.
And that's so what you're saying now. Is that what you meant during the campaign, that you're going to make sure the rates get lower? Is that what you meant?
Well, I mean, it's still my goal to get rates lower.
Okay.
It's still my goal. And if I can get the base rate lower, I'll try to get the base rate lower. That's a little bit trickier, but when we get into negotiations with Pelican, we will have economists and an accountant to look at the model that they're using. But it's far easier to get the fuel factor rate lower than the base rate. The base rate will take a significant amount of negotiations, and they'll have to look at their investments that they've made and the investments that they need to make. But we could certainly, so my belief is that, this is just my belief, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but my belief is that they could still come out with the same base rate, a slightly higher, but with a much tighter fuel factor. And then the public
the rate would be lower. All right. Yeah. Now, explain to the people who are watching this, because a lot of people are saying, why is Fortis charging the fuel factor? Why is this not included in the rate? And I know I had Fortis on the show, Pelican on the show before, and they said it's industry standards to have two rates, the fuel factor and the base rate. But a lot of people are saying, why? I mean...
Well, I can explain that.
Okay.
The reason why, and that's why it is the industry standard, is this. When most companies negotiate their rates, they normally negotiate it based on the price of fuel at that point in time, okay? And so the Pelican, Fortis, PPC, TCU negotiated their agreements with government back in around 1980-ish. And the price of fuel at that time was 90 cents per gallon. And I think,
wow.
I think when you check it on $1980 and everything, it was around about $35, right, round numbers per barrel of fuel. You know, today.
So the rate was low at that time.
So what happens is that, so even if you were negotiating it today, you'd say, okay, what is the price of fuel today? If you were negotiating a brand new contract today. The last time I checked it, and just to make sure, the last time I checked, I didn't check it last night, but the last time I checked it, it was below $90. Okay, but like I said, at some points in between February and now, it spiked up to 120.
That's per barrel?
Per barrel. And so, but it's going down now as the United States and Iran resolve it. So let's just say when you were negotiating it, it was $90. So let's just say you're negotiating today, the price of the barrel of fuel would be $90. That would go into your rate. So let's just say that $90 worked out to be, let's say, $1.50 a gallon inside the base rate. As the rates come down of the barrel of fuel, your base rate would be carrying a charge to the customer that's higher than the price of fuel that they're buying it. And so the fuel factor would need to be negative because they're saying you're paying on $1.50 per gallon, but it's now dropped to $1 a gallon, so you have to give people the 50 cents credit. But what happens if it jumps to $150 a barrel? They'd be saying to it, okay, the fuel factor, you're paying in the base rate $1 per gallon, but it's now $1.50, and we need to charge you the 50 cents. So the fuel factor is really the variable rate that captures the movement in the price of fuel on the global market. So you've got a price that's built into the base rate, and then you've got this other rate that captures the movement of fuel that moves up and down. That's why they said standard, because that's how most companies would capture it. And they have different names for it. Even in the Turks and Caicos, there's two names. But if you look in the Bahamas or Barbados or Jamaica, whatever, they have different names. But it's the same thing. It's the variable that captures the movement and price of fuel on the global market.
Okay, I got it. I mean, I hope the people watching got it as well. So the government was cognizant of the fact that the fuel factor is going to increase.
Yes.
And you all made a statement,
Yes.
A promise, that the fuel factor will be capped at 22 cents.
Yes.
But I want to ask you, why 22 cents? Why not 19 cents? Why not 18 cents? Why did you cap it at 22 cents?
Well, the thing about it is that you remember when Russia invaded Ukraine, we kept the fuel there. And the recommendation was that it was...
Because you did this before.
Yeah, we did it before.
During the COVID, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. It was... I think we were already out of COVID. It was just around...
Because I remember the government did it.
When Russia invaded Ukraine, the price of fuel went up. And we kept it, and on the recommendation was kept at 22 cents.
Oh, it was 22 cents at
the time. And so when it came back, it went just basically on those recommendations. You know, like I said, we could review it. We could say whether that make the adjustment. But like I said to it before, when this happened, we looked at it and we came to my ministry went to cabinet with a whole basket of options. You know, we're saying that we can do maybe 6 or 7 different things because we're an oil-dependent economy, and we know that the price of fuel going up in the global market means that the price are high at the pumps. Price of high electricity, your water bill, which will go up because you're using electricity to create water, the price of food. So we looked at right across a lot of things. And the first thing was that, you know what, we will give $500 to cover the cost of the increase in the fuel factor.
Oh, so that $500 stimulus was for the...
Well, that was one of the recommendations that we did.
Oh, okay.
And cost of relief payment, not stimulus. And so it was supposed to capture the increase in the fuel factor. But then we felt that, you know, we could go farther than that we could give the $500 and subsidize it down. So, but the 22 cents specifically came from what we had done previously.
What you did previously.
Yes.
So the government absorbed the 8 cents.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, also explain to you, because a lot of people are concerned. Obviously, the fuel factor went up.
Yes.
Because the prior month, I think, was almost 22 cents, I think.
It was about 21 cents. Yes.
And because people got their bills this month, it was a lot higher. Part of the reason, obviously, is the fuel factor.
The fuel factor.
And also, I believe people are using more, consuming more.
Well, I'll say this. Because I was talking to someone about this last night, and there's just, and I even a couple of weeks ago have said this. A on your bills, on your Pelican bills, there's the consumption. It's what
Yes.
you did the previous month, what you did this month, and then they have the consumption. Okay? My consumption between the July bill, which is the most recent bill received, and the previous month, jumped by 50%. By 50%, okay? So it went from like 2,000 to 3,000, which means my bill jumped up quite a bit.
So even though the consumption went up, and of course the fuel factor went up,
Yes.
so that even
So
double
my bill took a significant spike. But what I wanted to say to people is that only you know what happened in your house. So there's two things you should look at. If you feel that your consumption is higher than you believe that you use, raise that with Pelican. And I've been telling people that take it to Pelican because people are like, wait a minute, something's wrong. You know, look at your consumption. Look at your consumption. If you think your consumption, like my consumption jumped by 50%. But that, I probably should be raising with Pelican because I'm not like, wow, why would it jump 50%? But people are home during the summertime and but if you believe that your consumption is higher than normal, then take your bill to Pelican and raise
okay,
it with Pelican.
but when it comes to consumption, isn't there? You work at Fortis.
Yes.
Isn't there a system? Pelican just doesn't put what they want to put on your bill.
No, but they don't. I don't want to go and speak for Pelican. What they're supposed to do.
It's supposed to be what you consume.
What you consume. No, well, it's calculated. It's a calculated one. It's
So-
based on your previous reading and your current reading, and it takes the difference. But what I'm trying to say is that if persons look at it and go, this bill is wrong, outside of the increase in the fuel factor, we just think that the consumption is off. I'm saying take your bill back to Pelican, or if you really concerned, you think that something is happening, there's the Department of Consumer Affairs. You know, when you're in Granada, you see it right outside the airport, which is part of the Department of Trade. Raise it. I'm saying to people, if you really have an issue, if you think that there's something wrong, raise the issue with Pelican on the consumption side, but on the fuel factor side. Like the base rate doesn't change. Okay, so there's nothing to do with the base rate. But if your consumption is higher, your base rate, your base amount will be higher, and your fuel factor will be higher. But if you think the consumption is wrong, raise
Then
the
they
issue.
can raise it because
Raise the issue with Pelican.
So, as a minister of utility and based on your experience, what sort of tips can you give individuals so they can get a lower bill?
Well, right now, the easiest way to get a lower bill is lower consumption. Okay, so let's just say everything is correct. I'm not saying everything is, and I'm not saying that everything is. Let's just say everything is correct. Your meter is working spot on. No one is playing with the numbers as some people try to do. If all of that was happening, it was correct, and you're comfortable with that, the easiest way to get a lower bill is to do less consumption. So there's some things that you can do. Like there's some people who will leave their television on all the time, like turn the television off. Someone was telling me yesterday that their house, they keep the curtains closed, and they tell you to do it on the plane also, to keep the shade down, because if you leave the curtains open, the house would get really, really, really hot. So close the curtains to keep the house a bit cooler, so you don't have to run the AC. They're saying put the AC on a timer, so it after it cools the room, it goes off versus running all night. And so these are the sorts of things. Turn off the power bars because sometimes things are plugged in that's draining energy that you don't really need to keep drawing energy. So just have the essentials plugged in. But there's some things that just keeps pulling energy all day, even when it doesn't need to be pulling energy. But I would say that would be some of the quick tips. You know, try to lower your consumption. Turn off the devices that you don't need. Turn off devices that needs charging. Don't necessarily charge them all day, throughout the day. People, some phones require being charged 2 or 3 times a day, but if you could just charge it overnight once a day, that would cut it down. So all of these little things.
And it's very hot. A lot of people are burning AC. I tell you.
And there's some. I mean, it's certainly in my house there would be times where anytime someone wants to, there has been laundry done every day. And which is. These new laundry, particularly with Samsung, they send you messages to say the laundry machine is running, and there are times throughout the day, almost every day.
Those smart machines.
Almost every day I get a message saying that their laundry cycle is just to be done. Somebody wants to wear their favorite jeans, and it's dirty. They put it in
Okay.
something. All of those things. If you just spin up the cycle just for 15 minutes to do 2 or 3 pieces, that run the bill up. So move to your weekly thing of doing your laundry. If you have a wash and dry at home, to limit the consumption. So that would be the quickest way, is to reduce the consumption.
Now, do you think people misunderstood the government's announcement? Because I was speaking to not many people, but a few, and they were under the impression that the government was paying their utility bill for the next 4 months up to $1,500. And so they just continued to consume more because they thought that they didn't have to pay this bill. Did you get that vibe from anyone, that they thought the government was going to be paying for the utility bill?
One person said to me afterwards, the bill shock came and said that, but then they said that we were going to get $500 for 3 months, coming to $1,500, and I was like, that's not what we said. But I can understand why. I mean, the thing about it is this: this is a bill shock, and these bills are high, and Pelican's bills are, maybe even based on the base rate, the rates are high.
It is.
We're one of the highest.
The bills are high.
The highest in the region. So I feel people's pain.
Yeah, it is high.
And even though we know that a fuel factor was going to be 31 cents.
Yeah, because they do tell us a month in advance.
I don't know what a fuel factor of 31 cents looked like until I see the bill. And I think even with that, I think a lot of people got bill shock. And it's that's one of the reasons why we're working hard to get the bill done.
Okay.
We have one of the highest rates in the world. It's always been this way from from 1980, with the occasional increases to the base rate. And I think that when we said it, most people thought that, okay, it'll be slightly higher, but they didn't expect it. Was, like I said, I didn't expect it. And I tell people all the time, my parents are getting a bill, my sister's getting a bill, my son is getting a bill. So we know that, this is not something that we expect it to be that high. Maybe when you see it, you're quite shocked when you see the actual rate itself.
Because someone had called me too, and they say something is wrong. So I told the person, I say, send me your last 2 months' bills. And so she sent me the previous month. Her consumption was like 345 kilowatts. Yeah. And then she sent me the most recent bill, which was over 1,300. So I say, well, that's why your bill is high. Not only because of the fuel factor, your consumption went up by 1,000.
Yeah, but that's the same thing. I said to you, my consumption went up by.
She say, oh, my son is home for summer burning AC. So all of those things we have to be conscious
no, that's why
of,
That's why I said to people.
Because the bill is already high. The rates are already high.
But that's exactly the point. And so when people reach out to me, I've tried to say to a few people, look at what was your bill the previous month, or what was your bill last year, and then you'd see it. Now, like I said, but that said, the rates are high. And I don't even just talking about the fuel factor being high. The rates are high.
The base rate.
So we're in a jurisdiction where the base rate is high and the fuel factor varies widely. Like I said to the last time I talked about the public update, at least the first one, in 2025, the average rate was 16 cents. Today we're at 2030. We're at 30 cents. So at 2016, the average rate was 16 cents for fuel factor. Today, the last bill, it was 30 cents. And so it shows you that huge swing, almost doubled. So we just have to work to getting the rates down. So I feel everybody's paying, and we get it, and that's why we're rushing towards getting the
So any time frame when we as consumers, all of us are consumers, even you, any time frame as to when we can expect to see some movement in a reduction in the rates?
Let me clear it, because I know you almost have to choose your words wisely now, because then people take things and kind of not give you the whole story and everything. Okay, so I just want to give a bit of context to persons, and then we can explain to you. When PPC and TCU is the regular the company, the utility producer in Granite and Saltke.
Right.
And PPC was basically for North Caicos and Middle Caicos, South Caicos and Provo, even though South Caicos was called AEP, but they combined. Right? When they had their licenses, they got 50-year licenses, okay? And so their licenses both of them got these 50-year licenses. When Fortis bought them, Fortis bought the shares in the companies. Fortis didn't negotiate a brand new license, so that's why people come and
so
say.
the company just remain as is, just different shareholders.
Yeah, so people come and say, oh, the government didn't know. So like 20 years ago, whatever, when Fortis bought basically PPC and bought all of their licenses, and then they eventually bought TCU license, they continued the same company. So the only thing they did, so technically, PPC and AEP and NCP and MCP and TCU are still existing. They have a new branding, but those companies' licenses are still in existence. And so, like I said, Fortis bought the shares in those companies. So Pelican, when they bought them, bought Fortis, again, bought the shares in the company. So they didn't, that's why they didn't have to come to government. People say, oh, the government didn't know. They didn't have to come to government.
But the government said they didn't know.
But that's why I said to you, they didn't have to come to government. But here's the downside. The downside to doing it that way is the clock keeps ticking.
On that license,
On that
50-year license.
On that 50-year license. So you see what I'm saying? So even though they were able to come and do it, the fact is that if they kept on doing coming to government and negotiating a new license, we would have kept negotiating maybe a 50-year license, a 50-year license. But because they were buying the shares in the company, the clock keeps ticking. So guess what's happened now? We're now down to one license. It's now at about 10 years, less than 10 years. So we're down to the point now where we can now start to get into negotiations, with new negotiations with Pelican, because it wasn't like they had negotiated a license and bought Fortis' license. Now, if Fortis had negotiated a new 50-year license, there would be no reason for Pelican now to negotiate. So Pelican now is interested in negotiating a new license with government. So this is the best time. So this is a time now when the expectation is that we're going to be coming to the table to negotiate a brand new license with brand new rates. And Pelican certainly wants it sooner rather than later. And I don't mean like within this next 6 months, maybe the next year, 18 months. But certainly we've already looking at an MOU around how to now negotiate a brand new license with Pelican. Now they want what they call a unified license, a combined license, basically. Instead of having a license for Grand Turk, one for Salt Cay, one for South Cay, one license for the entire, all the markets, all the islands that they're doing. But now we're getting into negotiating, and we're going to have, like I said, we're going to have an economist, we're going to have an accountant, we're going to have a lawyer that deals with these sorts of negotiations. We're going to have a very strong team, so we're not going to be at a disadvantage. And so the plan, and the electricity commissioner, Mr. Delano Arthur, we've already brought papers to cabinet to set up the multi-regulatory committee, to be able to bring in the expertise that we need to bring in, the consultants that we need. So we're building our strength to be able to negotiate with Pelican, to negotiate rates all the way down. That's why I'm confident. They could say whatever they're saying in July 2026, but I'm confident that we're going to, coming out of these negotiations, we're going to have lower rates to the consumer. And so you said when it started, we've been starting this from last year. We've already brought in a number of papers to cabinet to get it set up. But in addition to that, we're bringing in the renewable RERP, the Renewable Energy and Resource Planning Bill, which is seeking to encourage independent renewable energy producers to be able to produce energy and tie it to the grid. And for those persons who think that they've seen the bill, what they saw was the first draft of the bill that went into consultations. The consultants then, and when I mean consultations with the public, with the energy provider, our own internal consultants have given their feedback, and now we're sending a bill to the AG's chambers with all of their recommendations to redraft the bill to make the changes. So no one has seen any of what the new bill will look like, because we haven't redrafted the bill. They saw something that started all the way back in 2013 might have been when we started going down this road. But certainly this has been going on for a number of years, building up the Renewable Energy Bill, which is now the Renewable Energy Resource Planning Bill. And that bill, with all of the consultations and everything, we're now sending the AG's chambers the original draft to redraft that bill. So when you hear people saying, oh, this is what's going to be in it, they don't know, because the AG's chambers just now has to start to redraft that bill.
Okay, all right. But before we move into another area of your ministry, I know we talk about the 30 cents and capping at 22 cents. We talk about the $500, which you said was one of the initiatives for you to cover the relief on the utility bills. And then you made a statement recently that to expect another shock in the bills.
The reason why is that when we were told that the bill that you get in July and the bill that you get in your August bill will both be at 30 cents. And so we'll still be subsidizing it down to 22 cents, but you have one more month of that high rate.
All right, but it's going to be for 4 months, am I understanding?
Yeah, but we're going to keep it up for 4 months.
Okay, is the government also considering reviewing the $500? Are you going to increase that, or are we going to expect to get another $500?
Well, the thing about the
or more?
The thing about the cash portion of it, is because that's a Ministry of Finance function, because the Ministry of Finance has to look at their budget. They have to look at how much money that they have, the recurring budget. They have to look at the capital budget and everything. They're moving things around because they all have competing priorities, and so we have a lot of other things. As they're running a country, have a lot of other things going on. And so the Ministry of Finance comes back, will say, this is what we can do. So let's just say we went in, we made a recommendation for it to be $1,000. They may come back and say, well, we could do 500, we could do 750, or we could do more. So it's them, but like I said, we make recommendations all the time about how we, and for my ministry, we make recommendations on how we can provide relief around the cost of energy going up, because if it's cost of something else, it may fall under a different department, and then the Ministry of Finance would go off and come back and make a recommendation of what the amount is.
Well, I'm going to try to get the Premier on, because I know he's the Minister of Finance. I'm trying to see if I could get him on so we could talk more about that. Let's talk about the water situation that's happening in Salt Key. What's the latest on that?
Well, the latest on is that we are right in the middle of getting the new filter installed.
Okay.
So that's on island now, and country now, and being fixed and installed in Salt Key. There's some retrofitting that's required to the piping because it's
at the moment, what are the people in Salt Key getting a limited water supply?
The Salt Key is low on water, certainly in that, and there are persons with private tanks with water in it that's sharing water, and the water undertaking department is shipping 105, if you want to be exact, 105 5-gallon bottles of water to Salt Key every 3 days. To me, that's not a proper solution. For me, that's more of a drinking water solution than bathing and flushing and washing and all those sorts of things solution. But that's what's happening. I visited Salt Key for most of the day last Thursday. There was dozens of bottles of water there with water in them, the 5-gallon bottles, which meant that we had met that needs at that time because all of them weren't used up, and they keep refilling them and sending them back. We're now, like I said, just about solved the problem because the filters here. The filter is not a little filter like this. It's a big filter. It's certainly more than 4 feet high, probably about 2.5 feet wide. And so it's a big device. But like I said, it's here, and the pipes are being retrofitted. But why did this happen? And the RO plant's been there for a while, and these pods eventually go down. And so when the filter went down, they went over to fix the filter. They realized that it couldn't be fixed, and they put in an order for one. They couldn't find the exact one, so they had to buy something similar, and then it had to be shipped to the Turks and Caicos. And the size of it's not something you can just send by FedEx, despite the people saying that. But the issue is that when the government moved to potable water that they were making, they moved away from rainwater. And so Salt Key has like 13 government tanks, and the tanks was left over the years, not over the last 5 years, but over consecutive years, to go in disrepair. And so they just completely moved away.
So the tanks was not used as backups?
So the tanks, only one tank was used as backup, but it's a storage facility for the RO plant. but they weren't capturing rainwater.
So now y'all going to do that?
So, but let me say this. So what happened is that when the RO plant went down, the tank had water in it. The storage tank had water in it that they stored water from the RO plant. But people started drawing from that because they normally take water from that. And then eventually it ran dry, and that's when they said Salt Cay has no water because the storage tank ran dry. But they've got a number of tanks in Salt Cay that can be used to catch rainwater that hasn't been, upkept. And the largest tank in Salt Cay, which is around the north area of it, half the roof is completely gone, and it has never been repaired. There's a tank next to what I would call the salt shed, where when they repaired the roof, they never put the gutters back on. And so what we're going to do is that we're going to get the tanks repaired, and we're going to set them up to capture rainwater. As I told the deputy director, it's better to have a tank full of rainwater than to have no water, even though I know that they think potable water is the best, and then the rainwater.
You should still have.
I just tell them we all grew up with
Of course,
water,
yeah, absolutely.
So we're going to capture rainwater.
Yeah.
We're going to fix the tanks. We're going to so we can capture the rainwater. We're going to fix the RO plant. I have said to the team this morning, we should buy a much smaller RO plant. You could get RO plants for about $30,000 that can produce about 3,000 gallons. So we should do another smaller RO plant. What I'm thinking is that we'd have it making water for the government large storage tanks, which is in the north. So that's filling up as a plan B also. So that's will be put money into the budget to get a smaller RO plant.
Okay.
So in addition to the main one, that's getting a new filter. But also we're going to get a fuel tanker. I had said a fuel truck, but I believe that we could do something a little bit smaller because we need about something that can carry about 1,000 gallons. Because the way people get water to their homes in Salt Cay is they run garden hoses from the storage tank to their house, which could be, let's say, 1,500 feet away or maybe a quarter mile away.
Okay.
And they're running a garden hose trying to fill up their tank, personal tank, from the main storage tank.
Okay.
So a lot of water is getting wasted between leaks and everything
Right.
in the pipe and the hoses. So
I didn't
the
know
things
that.
we're going to do is that we're going to get a tanker, water tanker, so we can then take water, at least 1,000 gallons at a time from the storage tanks, and then take it to people's houses and then pump that water into their tank.
Okay. Now, what about the water situation in Grand Turk?
The water situation in Grand Turk, we think that we're on top of it. There's still issues with the distribution system, the piping system, and so we're going to look into that. Now, one of the things that I have, I don't think the cabinet minutes have been out yet, but I will pre-announce it ahead of the cabinet minutes because cabinet has already approved it. But I brought a paper to cabinet, and the cabinet approved it to allow us, because in Grand Turk, Salt Cay, and South Cay, only the government can produce water. Only the government can produce. So no one else can produce water. There's no other water model for those. It's in legislation, and so I brought a paper, and cabinet agreed to allow us to change the legislation to allow different type of models, water production models in those islands.
Because I heard there was some parties interested in doing city water in South Cay.
So we'll be able to now look
Allow
at and
that.
upgrade, modernize the water production,
Okay.
not just production, but also distribution systems in those islands at minimal cost to the government.
Okay. Now, can you explain to the viewer, or not can you, will you explain to the viewers about, I think there was a mention about the supply of the police record. My understanding is that they were collecting the money on behalf of the government and was not being remitted to the government. Can you explain to the viewers about that?
Well, the police records is managed by the police, okay? And
Right.
So I'll tell you what it is, what I know, all right? Because it came up inside the appropriations committee. Came up in this. The developer of the police records remitted the money to the government, remitting money to the government, because they would collect the money from the e-commerce side of it, I think through Stripe, and they were remitting the money back. At some point, they had stopped. I don't know whether through a contract dispute or whatever, they stopped. Now, the government decided also that they wanted to, because the police record system is not, it's what we call the police record system produces a physical card and basically said, you don't have a police record. But the main system is called OTRIS, and it's in the United States, and it's a UK system for the overseas territories. So that's actually what holds the record, it holds the case files and everything like that. The police wants to upgrade that to a newer system, to one that's utilized in Jamaica. It's not a Jamaican system, but it's one that is utilized in Jamaica that the Commissioner of Police is familiar with, and he believes that it's a much better system outside of just producing.
So it's captured more information?
Well, all the bells and whistles.
Oh, okay.
Because the only thing the police record system did here was that it queried the OTRIS system in the United States done by the UK for all the overseas territories. And so that system, that police record system that handles all the arrest information, all those different things, that's managed in the United States. They export Turks and Caicos records out to be queried by our system to say whether you produce the police record system. And so that system they want to upgrade. They believe that the one that they're using, that the Jamaican police force uses, not created by the Jamaican police force, is a much better system. That's the reason why the cost to develop the police record system was under $30,000. And this one, they're procuring $200 and some thousand dollars to get. So that's why they want to move to a brand new, bigger system with all the bells and whistles. The contract dispute between the developer is being handled by the AG's chambers. Okay. Because when the contract dispute popped up, I think it popped up in 2024, the AG's chambers is now dealing with that contract dispute about it. But that's not the reason why they're moving away. They're moving away because they want to go for an all-encompassing system, police record system that sits in the Turks and Caicos, and not just produce the police records when you want to, travel or whatever, but it also tracks case files and arrest records and all those sorts of things. That's why they're asking for $200,000. But in terms of the contract dispute with the American developer, the AG's chambers is dealing with that contract.
So that $200,000 is really for a brand new
system with all the bells.
But do you know how much money hasn't been paid over?
No, I don't know.
You don't know the value?
I don't know about that.
Okay. Okay, thanks for clearing that up. So it's because there was a misunderstanding on my part as well. So let's talk now about this national ID. From the time this government came in power in 2021, they'd be talking about a national ID. From 2021.
Yes.
We are in 2026 now. You're part of this government, second term.
Yes.
What is happening with the national ID?
Yeah,
Are we going to wait for a third term if you all get a third term?
No, the national ID is moving, okay, and the team is here. So it was from 2022 to 2025. It was under the Office of the Premier. From February 2025, it's been moved into my ministry to finish building it out, and then it will then eventually.
Explain before you go further. Explain to what the national ID card is.
Well, the national ID is just going to be an ID where every legal resident in the Turks and Caicos will have one. So when it comes in terms of people who are on the island, physically on the island, there's only 3 categories of persons who are supposed to be on the island. Those who are legally required, who are legally allowed to be here, and those persons should have a national ID. Whether you're here as a Turks and Caicos Islander, whether you're on work permit or whatever, it will be the card that shows that any can verify that you're allowed to be in the Turks and Caicos.
And all the information will be in here. NID.
It's the number on the card will be used for all of those things.
All
so
right.
it's not
like a social security number in America.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's not like your NIB information will be in it. It's just that your national ID number will be the number for your NIB. It will be an NHIB number.
Okay, so we wouldn't have to have multiple numbers.
Yeah, exactly. And we hopefully it will be your student ID too and everything, that you get one number to get.
Okay, got it. Okay, now tell us now where we are.
So the whole idea is that, you have 3 types of people in the Turks and Caicos. You have those who, when this is all rolled out, you have those who are legally allowed to be here long term. They will have a national ID. It will be tourists who are allowed to be here short term, and they'll have a stamp in their passport. So if you walk up to anyone and you say, are you allowed to be in the Turks and Caicos? You say, yes, here's my national ID to show that I'm a permanent resident, and here's my stamp in my passport to show that I came in and I'm here temporarily. And then the last category are those who are here illegally. So if you don't have a stamp in your passport to show that you're a temporary or national ID, then you're here legally. So
you wouldn't have a number.
Yeah, well, exactly. So the whole point is that immediately we'll be able to start to easily identify persons who are long-term residents, short-term residents, and those who are illegally. So it gives us, a benefit for that. And then we can start to use it for other things. The banks, the idea is to get the banks to adopt it as your main number. We'll be able to, so people talk about benefits. If we're going to give benefits, and we say we only want to give it to Turks and Caicos Islanders, it's very easy to be able to identify. Because we'll just say, if you're filling out the portal, fill in your national ID number. And it will automatically say this person is a PRC. Identified. So all these benefits we're talking about, and I was saying that it's very difficult to do now. Because a lot of people think, well, why can't we just do this? I'm thinking, because the systems aren't talking to each other like that. We don't have, we can't take the voters list and send it over to Pelican and have them import the voters list into their billing system. They just can't, and I was explaining this to someone the other day. It's like, but in the UK, you could get benefits, I'm saying, because you have a unique identifier right across all the systems. We don't have that. So the national ID will give you that unique identifier. So when you want to give these sorts of benefits to just senior citizens, or just pensioners, or just persons who
just Turks and
Caicos Islands, as I'm saying, you can then do that a lot easier than we think that we should be able to do it. Should do it now. Now, but what's taking it so long? Because there's a whole lot of legislation that comes around it.
I see.
There's a ton of legislation. There's things about, Data Protection Act. If your data is going to be tied to it, what are the government can allow to store and they're not allowed to store? What can we use to store on the card? Can we use your biometric, your eye information, so your iris? Can you use your fingerprint for it? All of those things require a huge amount of legislation. Jamaica tried to roll out their national ID, and it got challenged in court. And it slowed them all the way down because the legal frameworks got challenged, wasn't in place, and they got challenged around it. So we're doing a lot of work, prep work, around the legal frameworks and everything before we start to build the systems out.
And what's the time frame?
We expect to have the first set of cards out next year, in 2027.
Next year. Okay.
In 2027, people will have cards. Whether every single person have a card at that time, but in 2027, cards will start rolling out. But we've gotten all the way through the legislation that we have to put in place. So we've got the draft legislations that we need to have in place to be able to allow us to. Because as the AG's chambers like to say, as the AG like to say, every single thing starts with law. Because you need the law to put, to put life to everything.
It has to be a guide.
Anything that exists in law.
Yeah. Even with laws, people still challenge.
Yeah. So even things like the land that you're just standing on, to be able to own it, there has to be a law that exists around land ownership and everything like that. So everything starts with legislation, and that's what we've been working on.
Oh, okay. I see the Bahamas. I was reading where they recently have an agreement with Estonia.
Estonia.
Yeah. I mean, to understand.
To help them out.
Yeah.
But we've already had an agreement with Estonia.
So we are ahead.
When we started out with the national ID design, we went with EGA, and which is an Estonian company, and they provided the consultations and everything. So I know the Bahamas is going down the road and they're using Estonia to help them with cybersecurity and a number of different things. But this is not a race. I'm not saying that we're ahead of the Bahamas. I'm saying we've already engaged. We've already engaged with Estonia twice. Mm-hmm. Once on the national ID and one on the replacement for SIGTARs. So we have a current engagement with the Estonian government.
Oh, okay. Now I know that y'all implemented the quick pay. Is that what you call it?
Yes.
When will you expand that so we could pay our accommodation taxes?
We're working on extending it now because we want all payments
right.
to be.
Because right now we only can pay the regular.
Yeah, we want all payments to be able to go through to the e-pay and right into the government's account.
So what time frame? You know I like my time frame. Because I can come back to you.
No, man. I would like to see it done before the next budget. So that's March of next year.
So before March 31st.
Well, before March 31st, yes.
All right.
Yeah, my goal is to have that and the ability to do
That'll
things
be awesome.
with the DMV, to be able to allow the DMV to, that you'll be able to renew your driver's license, your vehicle license.
Do you know why they don't take American Express?
Well,
you can get a good rate,
No, the thing, it's the Treasury that would decide on that, but a lot of companies don't like to to take American Express because I think it has to do with the chargebacks. How
Or
American,
it's more frequent to more chargebacks?
I mean, I know it's a lot of them because I think American Express is more consumer friendly,
Yeah.
and so the consumer can dispute anything, and then I believe I could correct it if I'm wrong. This is not my
No, that's
my
one of the
area,
reasons I hear.
but
But
I
I know
believe
another reason
that-
was the rate
that-
was high in
yeah,
Visa and
yeah,
MasterCard. But
that they, and so they are tough on the merchant, and so someone could pay for something and then immediately
I understand.
they say that they didn't get the service or whatever, and then American Express.
well, once you provide your support and documentation. Anyway, they're telling me that our time is up.
No, I thought
So-
they started late. And
Yeah,
besides, I'm the minister of broadcasting.
Hey, put your feet down.
Yeah, I do.
But anyway, we'll respect them. But any closing remarks we'll have to have you again on the show, but any closing remarks you'd like to share with the viewers that you think we should have covered, we didn't cover?
Well, I mean, the thing about it is that, I mean, Drexwell is this, and I want to make it very clear to the people. We know that the rates are very high in terms of electricity rates. We know this. This is no secret. We have one of the highest rates in the world, at least in the region. And that's why I said from before I got elected that we were going to get these rates down. That's the reason why when Pelican bought Fortis, I didn't panic because I knew that we were going to get into a point where we have to negotiate a brand new contract. So this wouldn't be any negotiations for an extension. This wasn't going to be any negotiations for special rate outside of that. We know that the Turks and Caicos has completely changed from 1980 when the governments of that day was begging energy providers to come to the country. We know that we will be negotiating from a position of strength. So I expected that the regulator, the energy provider would have come. The energy utilities department, which is headed by a Turks and Caicos Islander, very, very smart young man, Delano Arthur. The only thing that Delano and I fight on is how quickly we can start negotiating lower rates. I want to start negotiating lower rates right now. Commissioner Arthur wants to make sure that he has his best team in place to be able to negotiate from a position of strength. That's the only thing we would disagree on.
Yeah.
But we will find middle ground. The point I'm making is this. We're going to negotiate a lower rate with Pelican. We're going to negotiate a lower rate with Pelican. I'm telling you this. We're going to have the best team. I can certainly tell you that Commissioner Arthur is pushing for a best team. And as soon as we're comfortable, and we're talking about within the months, not years, that we have that best team in place, we're going to start negotiating lower rates. People will see lower rates this term. And so that's why, like I said, I didn't panic when people say, oh, well, the government said that they didn't know. It didn't matter to me as much about not knowing because I knew that we were going to come back around and say, okay, if you want to do it this way, you want to buy the shares and come. And I put a lot of trouble on Fortis. Fortis got so much heat from our government that they didn't even stay around for the handover. They hand the keys to Pelican and left the country. They were planning on having a press conference. They left the country because we froze them out. We basically told them how we were disappointed, how they handled it. Now, they kept it all quiet. They kept all of the bidders for the asset, held them to an NDA so they couldn't say anything. But we gave Fortis a lot of trouble. But I knew that once that happened, okay, by the time in a year or two, you're going to be under 10 years, and we're going to be into the negotiating period.
Yeah.
And we're going to negotiate a lower rate.
Yeah.
Now, outside of that, I don't want to speak for Pelican. Pelican has said that they will make a lot of investments around renewable energy. We will hold them to that because they're a renewable energy fund, and that we will hold them to that. But I'm confident that in a year or two, we will have a higher mix of energy production being done from renewable, from solar, and we will have a lower rate to the consumer. So they're going to benefit at both times. Okay. But I want people to know that we feel the pain, and that's what we're working towards. We didn't start the war. The war started in February, And I'm mentioning this. I'm not going to say that a previous administration had it better than us, because I would say that the Charlene Cartwright administration had lower fuel rates, but they had 2 hurricanes. Okay, so and we haven't had any knock on wood. So I'm not going to. But But we want to get back to the point where we have.
And the governments do not control fuel factor.
Particularly global
Yeah.
geopolitical events. We don't control it. We have to live with it. As I said a few times, our approach to this is no different from the way Cayman is doing, Bermuda is doing, the Bahamas is doing. Our approach is exactly the same. We're not reinventing anything. I know people are really upset. I'm mad when I look at my bill, but these are. And I was thinking about this the other day. Every time Mia Mottley speaks and she puts something on TikTok, people send it around and say,
"Look what Barbados is doing."
Man, look at this leader. Look at this leader. This is a leader. And someone sent one around. I clicked on it the other day, and one of the things that Mia Mottley said is that this Barbados is moving, and we've gone from crisis to like prosperity and everything like that. She didn't say we've never had a crisis. She didn't say the Motley government has never experienced crisis. She said we've gone through crisis. This is a crisis that we are going through due to geopolitical events. We're trying to subsidize the pain. There's a bit of, certainly there's pain, partly because of fuel factor costs, partly because of the base rate is really high. We're going to negotiate those rates down, and we guarantee the public, guarantee them that.
Okay.
I tell you, I told something like that. I
I'm
guarantee
come back to you.
I guarantee you, we will come out of this with more renewable energy as a mix and lower rates.
All right.
So,
Okay,
but
you've
one thing I wanted to say outside of that, and I should have said it at the beginning, I want to bring remarks on behalf of Honorable Kyle Knowles, who's the Minister of Health, who are around the earthquake in Colombia. Our government, we give our condolences to the family and to the people who have lost family and loved ones in Colombia. And we stand in solidarity with the Colombian people. Yeah. But I want you to know that Honorable Knowles, who's currently out of country, is working very, very hard. I spoke with him last night, very hard to ensure that Turks and Caicos patients are safe. He's told me that they're safe, but they're doing all the things that are, because I know people are, afraid. And they should be at certain extent. We can understand that. And is doing everything they can with NHIB to ensure that Turks and Caicos patients are safe, and those who need to be brought out of Colombia being brought out of Colombia. So I wanted to bring those remarks on behalf of Honorable Knowles and the Ministry of Health, that they're on top of the situation, and in our government that we stand in solidarity with the Colombian people around the earthquake.
Okay, thank you. Well, you've been watching Financially Speaking. This is our first show for the season. I hope that you've been well informed. I know, of course, it's not settled well with some of you because we want to see things, right away. It might take a couple of months before we see a reduction in the rates overall. But I want to encourage you to speak out. Don't be quiet. And I think sometimes, and I also want to encourage the government to communicate better with us, because many times we have to make assumptions because they're not communicating with us. So you need to speak out. People may rile you because of what you say. Don't worry about that. Speak out. I'm telling you, when more of us speak out, I'm telling you, you'll see things get done. And I encourage people to do that. And be conscious of the consumption of your electricity. Be conscious of the electricity. I give you the example of the lady whose consumption went from 300 to 1,300. It went up by 1,000. So be conscious of it. If you want Fortis to make more money, then you're gonna end up consuming more. So it's up to you to make that decision. Obviously, the fuel factor is beyond your control. But I hope that you are better informed. I hope you are well informed, and I hope you're able to make better decisions on how you're able to consume less electricity, because it's a killer. But by the time some of us pay electricity, we have no money left to pay for anything else. So I'm just hoping that something takes place soon. But I believe something will take place. So thank you for watching Financially Speaking. I'm your host, Drexwell Seymour. My guest was Honorable E.J. Saunders.